We're about to dive into what might be the most fundamental conflict of your life. That constant battle between who you think you are and who the world wants you to be. Think about it for a second. Your beliefs, your choices, even the values you hold most dear. What if they aren't really yours? What if they're just an echo of the groups you belong to? All right, so here's our approach. We're using an AI framework to really break this down, to dissect this tension. We're going to get into why we're so willing to sacrifice our identity just to feel like we belong. And that leads us to a really big question. Is society ultimately more important than the individual? Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we first need to look at these two massive opposing forces. Are we truly independent individuals, or are we just collections of the groups we're a part of? And this is that classic divide, right? Individualism versus collectivism. A researcher named Geert Hofstede did some amazing work showing how this plays out across different cultures. So in places like the US, which are highly individualistic, it's all about the I. Personal goals, self-reliance, you know the drill. But then you look at more collectivist cultures, say in Japan, and the whole focus shifts to the we. It's all about group harmony, loyalty, and your role within that group. And this leads us to something called social identity theory, which really gets to the heart of why the group matters so much to us. See, these memberships, they're not just labels. They're a core part of how we see ourselves. We actually get our self-esteem from them. Think about it. The pride you feel for your family, your city, your favorite sports team, that's all part of your social identity. Okay, so if our identity is so wrapped up in these groups, what are the psychological forces pushing us to conform? The things that make us quiet a part of ourselves just to fit in. Well, a huge driver is something psychologists call relatedness. And let me be clear, this isn't just a nice to have. It's a fundamental human need, like right up there with food and water. We are literally hardwired to connect with other people. And when that need isn't met, it creates this immense pressure inside us to find a group, any group, that will take us in. And that powerful need for relatedness, it fuels everything else, doesn't it? We conform because we crave that feeling of acceptance, and we're just terrified of being left out, of being isolated. Just think about the sheer force of peer pressure when you were in school, or even now, the unspoken rules at your job. We follow along, we adopt the group's opinions, all to feel that comfort of having shared values. And then there's social media. Wow, it has basically taken our need to belong and put it on steroids. Every single like, every share, every comment, it's a little hit of validation. So we build these curated online personalities to fit into our digital tribes. And the fear of cancel culture, which is really just a modern form of being exiled, just pushes us even deeper into thinking like the group. But hey, this isn't just some modern psychological puzzle. Philosophers have been duking this out for centuries. And this battleground of ideas, it still shapes our world today in a huge way. So on one side of the ring, you've got Friedrich Nietzsche. He's like the ultimate champion of the individual. He looked at society and didn't see comfort. He saw a herd that forces this slave morality on everyone, crushing the potential of anyone who dares to be different. For Nietzsche, the whole point of life wasn't to fit in. It was to break free. And this quote just nails his whole perspective. The tribe, the group, society, he saw it as this constant, overwhelming force trying to absorb your authentic self. So for Nietzsche, being truly free, it was a fight, a constant struggle. But then, on the complete opposite side, you have someone like Karl Marx. He argued that this whole idea of a free individual is just an illusion, especially under capitalism. He believed the system itself pigeonholes us, forces us into roles that actually destroy our real individuality. And for Marx, the only way to get that genuine self back was through the collective. See, for Marx, you just can't understand a person in a vacuum. He said an individual is basically the sum of all their social relationships and their specific place in the economic structure. So in other words, the system is what defines the self. Okay, so we've got these two incredibly powerful and totally opposing ideas. The goal here isn't to pick a winner. It's to understand that this tension between them is not only real, but it's probably necessary. The case for society is pretty strong, right? Without shared rules, you just get chaos. It gives us the structure we need to survive, but the case for the individual is just as important. Individuals are where new ideas come from. Creativity, innovation, progress. It's the individual who stands up and challenges the old ways of thinking and pushes all of us forward. There's this researcher, Michelle Gelfand, who has a great way of looking at this. She talks about tight versus loose cultures. So the argument for society, that's a tight culture, with strong rules, which you absolutely need when the group is facing a threat. But the argument for the individual? That thrives in a loose culture with more freedom, which is where creativity blossoms. And the really important thing to get here is that this struggle, it isn't just out there between countries. It's happening inside every single one of us. So let's bring this down to earth. How does this big, abstract debate actually show up in our daily lives? Especially now, in a world that's more connected and frankly more demanding than ever. Oh, it's absolutely everywhere. Think about it. Do you pick the career that you're passionate about or the one your parents and society expect you to? Do you stick to your cultural traditions or do you forge your own path? Every single time you post something online, you're making a choice, aren't you? A choice between that curated public persona and your authentic, real self. Literally every big decision is this negotiation between fitting in and being you. And this leads us to our first really big insight. That need to belong, it's so powerful that we often end up sacrificing what we truly think and feel just to be accepted. Authenticity becomes the price you pay to get into the club. But here's the flip side, the paradox. If you completely reject the group, live that pure, unfiltered individual life like Nietzsche talked about, it can lead to this profound, crushing loneliness. Because at the end of the day, we're still wired to connect with each other. And that right there reveals the ultimate challenge, doesn't it? It's not about choosing society or the individual. The healthiest societies, and probably the happiest people, find what that researcher Michelle Gelfand calls a Goldilocks principle. A balance that's not too tight, not too loose, but just right. A constant dance between social order and personal freedom. Look, there is no easy map for this. Navigating that path between what you need as an individual and what the system demands of you, well, that's pretty much the central challenge of living a conscious life. And it's a journey every single one of us has to take on our own. So we're left with one final, unavoidable question. A question for you to really think about in your own life. If being accepted means you have to lose yourself in the process,